Bene, buongiorno, buon pomeriggio e buonasera a tutti i partecipanti riuniti da tutto il mondo. Grazie per essere qui con noi. Vi invitiamo innanzitutto a scriverci nella chat se vi va qui o su YouTube da dove ci seguite. E una cortesia, vi chiediamo di spegnere i microfoni per evitare rumori durante la presentazione dei relatori. E inoltre in chat, sia qui che su YouTube, trovate i testi dei relatori, degli interventi che sentiremo oggi.
So, again. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants gathered from all over the world. Thank you for being here with us. In the meantime, we invite you to write to us in the chat box if you have some comment, or comment down below on our YouTube channel for those who are following via live stream. And please switch off your microphone when you are not speaking, in order not to disturb our speakers.
Io sono Giulia Calibeo dell'Ufficio Comunicazione e Mobilitazione delle Risorse CADIS, Camillian Disaster Service International, che è la missione umanitaria e il braccio operativo dell'Ordine dei Ministri degli Infermi Camilliani. Insieme a Padre Aris Miranda, direttore CADIS, vi terremo compagnia per la prossima ora e mezza.
I am Father Aris Miranda, religious in charge of the Camillian Disaster Service International, the humanitarian mission and social arm of the Order of the Ministers of the Infirm. In the next 1.5 hours, together with Julia, our Resource Mobilization and Communication Officer of CADIS, we will journey with you in this kick-off celebration of the season of creation.
Benvenuti a questo evento kick-off promosso da CADIS per il Tempo del Creato 2022. In occasione della festa di Santa Maria Maddalena, patrona della nostra Chiesa qui a Roma, che si celebra proprio oggi, rifletteremo insieme sul parallelismo voce del creato nel roveto ardente e sepolcro vuoto.
Welcome to this kick-off event sponsored by CADIS for the season of creation. On the occasion of the feast of Saint Mary Magdalene today, the patron of our church in Rome. Today we will listen together on the voice of creation in the burning bush and the empty sepulcher.
Vi ricordiamo ancora una volta che siamo online, oltre che qui su Zoom, sul canale YouTube Camillian Disaster Service International.
Today we are live also online via Zoom and in your YouTube channel Camillian Disaster Service International. You will find the link on the chat box.
Se avete domande o riflessioni, vi invitiamo a scriverle direttamente sulla chat.
If you have any questions or thoughts, please post them on the chat box.
Ok, prima di entrare nel vivo di questa giornata, vogliamo riunirci in un momento di preghiera di Papa Francesco sul Tempo del Creato.
A Prayer for Our Earth by Pope Francis in Laudato Si. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it. That we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace.
Bene, lasciandoci ispirare da queste parole, accogliamo l'invito a partecipare attivamente al Tempo del Creato 2022. Il tema di quest'anno è ascoltare la voce del creato. Come possiamo rispondere al grido della terra che ci chiama all'azione? Come dare voce a coloro che sono stati abituati al silenzio per troppo tempo?
Letting His words inspire us, we accept the invitation to actively participate in the season of creation 2022 with the theme of listening to the voice of creation. How can we respond to the cry of the earth that calls us to action? How do we give voice to those who have been accustomed to silence for too long?
Il simbolo che accompagna questo tema è l'immagine biblica del roveto ardente, dal duplice valore simbolico. Il fuoco è naturale che arde nel creato e quindi disastri ambientali, ma anche il fuoco che chiamò Mosè mentre pascolava il gregge sul monte Oreb, che non consumò né distrusse il roveto. Questa fiamma dello spirito ha rivelato la presenza di Dio.
The symbol that accompanies this season is the biblical image of the burning bush, which has a dual symbolic value. A natural fires burning in creation, environmental disasters, but also the fire that called out to Moses as he grazed his flock on Mount Horeb, that neither consume nor destroy the bush. This flame of the Spirit revealed God's presence.
E per aprire questa celebrazione diamo dunque il benvenuto e la parola a padre Gianfranco Lunardon, vicario e segretario generale dell'Ordine e rettore della Chiesa di Santa Maria Maddalena. Con una riflessione sulla simbologia del creato, Dio fece il primo giardino, Caino la prima città.
And to open up this celebration, let us now welcome and listen to Father Gianfranco Lunardon, the Vicar and General Secretary of the Camillian Order and Rector of St. Mary Magdalene Church of Rome, with his reflection on God made the first garden, Cain the first city. On to you, Father Gianfranco.
Grazie e benvenuti a tutti. Ringrazio CADIS per aver organizzato questo evento e ringrazio anche per avermi invitato a partecipare. In ascolto della voce del creato, la Maddalena che cosa può dire a questo proposito? Parto da una scena iconica che vede la Maddalena nel mattino di Pasqua mentre cerca il Signore morto in un giardino. Ed è proprio su questo dato ecologico, creazionale, biblico, evangelico del giardino che mi vorrei soffermare per qualche minuto con voi. Questo è un giardino molto particolare e potete vedere la scena che prendo, giusto per suggestionare la vostra fantasia. È una scena famosa, almeno per noi in Italia. Beato Angelico, nel convento di San Marco a Firenze, la prima metà del 400. La Maddalena è la scena del noli me tangere, Cristo che la invita a non trattenerlo, ma a lasciarlo andare, e lei stessa poi deve andare. E vi invito a soffermare la vostra attenzione sul giardino. È un giardino molto particolare e altamente simbolico, perché è un giardino particolarmente rigoglioso, d'altra parte è resurrezione. Anche il creato risorge. E in che modo l'artista ce lo fa capire? Beh, anzitutto ci sono questi fiori molto particolari, sono piccole gemme, margherite, e in latino e in ebraico margherita vuol dire esattamente perla preziosa. E se guardate nel dettaglio, le stesse stigmate di Cristo nei suoi piedi sono margherite, come a dire che il creato che ha partecipato alla sofferenza della passione di Cristo, generata dal peccato del tradimento, cioè dal caos, parteciperà anche al rilancio della sua risurrezione. Quindi questo nuovo giardino è il nuovo Eden, è il nuovo paradiso, nel quale naturalmente noi dobbiamo entrare secondo una nuova logica. Non solo, ma anche lo sfondo è molto interessante. Trovate 4 piante e sono un cedro, un cipresso, una palma e un ulivo, perché secondo l'antica tradizione della leggenda aurea erano i 4 legni con i quali è stata fatta la croce di Cristo. Ma nel libro del Siracide sono anche le 4 piante segno della sapienza. E che cosa vuol dire questo? Quel creato che ha partecipato perché sconvolto alla passione di Cristo, adesso partecipa anche al suo rilancio. E la Maddalena è lì come testimone di tutto questo. Parto da un'affermazione che mi ha colpito molti anni fa, è del poeta inglese Abraham Conley. Se Dio ha creato il primo giardino, Caino ha creato la prima città, e noi sappiamo che l'ha chiamata Enoch, il nome del primo figlio. Lui voleva dire che se il giardino è il simbolo del cosmos, dell'ordine, la città è il simbolo del caos, cioè del disordine. Forse si riferiva a Babele. Non è propriamente così, non possiamo distinguere fino a questo punto. Certamente non è soltanto nella prospettiva biblica che si parla di Eden, paradiso, giardino, no? Dove Dio pone Adamo ed Eva. L'Eden fa parte di tutte le culture, perché di solito l'Eden indica un'isola fortunata dove piove solo di notte, non c'è freddo e soprattutto non c'è la fatica di guadagnarsi da vivere. Quindi è chiaro che l'Eden, il paradiso, richiama un'aspirazione forse di ciascuno di noi, un senso di ordine, un senso di pace, un senso di serenità, di armonia. E naturalmente parlando di giardino, così l'uomo fa anche, come si può dire, autocritica, perché noi sappiamo che il caos lo introduce esattamente l'uomo quando non rispetta la consegna di Dio. E la consegna di Dio era chiara: tutto è tuo come dono, ma non come proprietà. E noi sappiamo che il primo uomo, cioè io, lo vogliamo invece in proprietà, e quindi tutto viene rovinato, il famoso sarete come Dio. Siamo quindi in presenza, se vogliamo, di una rappresentazione simbolica del creato particolarmente, dicevo, affascinante. È un po' una mappa ideale al cui interno l'uomo è collocato per esserne il custode e anche il coltivatore. E sempre in quella immagine la Maddalena incontra Gesù risorto e si dice nel Vangelo di Giovanni, capitolo 19, che lo scambia per il giardiniere, cioè per un coltivatore, e infatti di solito c'ha una zappa o un badile in spalla. E anche questo richiama la consegna della Genesi, nel primo giardino, quando Dio dice ad Adamo: tu sei il custode e il coltivatore, cioè è l'uomo technicus, è l'uomo che trasforma, perché noi il creato lo dobbiamo trasformare, ma ci capiamo anche, dipende come, dipende per chi, dipende per quanto, dipende secondo quali regole. E custodire e coltivare sono 2 verbi veramente straordinari. Anzitutto la custodia. Beh, la custodia è l'azione tipica di Dio. Chi frequenta un po' la Bibbia sa che nell'Antico Testamento Dio è il custode del suo popolo. E noi sappiamo che nel Nuovo Testamento Giuseppe è il custode di Gesù. E coltivare è un verbo ancora più bello, perché coltivare nell'etimologia latina è cultus. Coltivare ha addirittura qualcosa di solenne, di liturgico. La coltivazione è l'atto liturgico che si fa nel Tempio. Quindi l'idea che Dio dica all'uomo di custodire e di coltivare quel giardino, cioè quel creato, beh, dice qualcosa di un lavoro sacro che va affrontato quindi al massimo delle potenzialità antropologiche. Ma poi nel primo giardino, che viene poi richiamato anche nell'esperienza pasquale, c'è un altro segno, c'è una mappa idrografica, l'acqua. Noi almeno in Italia piangiamo la sete in questo periodo, e c'è un fiume centrale nella Genesi che richiama un elemento culturale molto diffuso, era il famoso ombelico del mondo, no? C'era un fiume centrale da cui poi nella Genesi si ripartono 4 grandi fiumi, i 4 punti cardinali. E noi sappiamo che cos'è l'acqua. L'acqua è vita e l'acqua è morte, quando ce n'è troppa e quando ce n'è troppo poca. Ecco, e richiama anche qui che cosa? La collocazione dell'uomo. L'uomo deve scegliere la vita, non deve scegliere la morte. C'è una collocazione intelligente, sapiente. Le famose 4 piante dietro ricordo che nell'Antico Testamento erano performanti della sapienza. E la sapienza non è l'intelligenza, è il sapere, è avere esattamente il gusto e il sapore della vita. La Maddalena in tutto questo che cosa c'entra? Beh, è un déjà vu, l'abbiamo già visto tutto questo, perché possiamo fare una sovrapposizione tra i due giardini, quello dell'Eden, della Genesi, e quello del mattino di Pasqua, dove c'è appunto il sepolcro vuoto, che diventa anche, se vogliamo, un monito, perché noi in quel sepolcro vuoto c'è morte, ci possiamo anche rientrare, anche a livello creazionale, anche a livello ecologico. L'albero della vita, nella Genesi, adesso è l'albero della croce. I cherubini che lo difendono adesso sono gli angeli in bianche vesti, che annunciano la resurrezione. E poi soprattutto abbiamo l'umanità redenta, che è esattamente rappresentata dalla Maddalena. La Maddalena rappresenta tutti noi nella versione nuova, nella versione rilanciata. E naturalmente la Maddalena è partecipe della custodia, riceve la vita compiuta e la deve poi annunciare. È l'apostolo apostolorum nella tradizione di Tommaso d'Aquino. Non annuncia solo il risorto, annuncia una creazione che risorge, non solo una redenzione, ma anche una creazione. E naturalmente, e concludo, è un giardino in cui l'uomo ha perso l'accesso alla vita, ricorderete la famosa scena del serpente, dove la parola viene alterata, ed è in questo nuovo giardino in cui invece la vita riprende. Ma la cosa più notevole di questa scena pasquale è appunto che nel giardino viene integrato il dialogo non solo fra l'uomo e la donna, non solo fra l'uomo e l'uomo, ma anche fra l'uomo e il creato, che qui esattamente riparte.
Bene, sì, in effetti c'è qualcosa da ricordare nel giardino della creazione. Intanto il giardino dell'Eden rappresenta appunto la creazione così come è stata concepita da Dio, e quindi una mappa ideale all'interno della quale l'uomo è posto per esserne custode e coltivatore. E inoltre l'essere umano è l'homo technicus, che si occupa della trasformazione della materia e che vive in armonia con la creazione. E poi appunto il giardino della Genesi si sovrappone al giardino della Pasqua, e quindi l'albero della vita e l'albero della croce, i cherubini e gli angeli in bianche vesti, e l'umanità redenta, Maria di Magdala, che si ripresenta al suo vero custode risorto per ricevere la vita compiuta.
Okay, by the way, you will find the translation in the chat box. There's a document PDF, just download it, and you will find the translation in English and Italian. Okay. Indeed, something to remember in the Garden of Creation. The Garden of Eden represents creation as conceived by God, an ideal map within which man is placed to be its custodian and cultivator. The human being is the Homo technicus, who is involved in the transformation of matter and who lives in harmony with creation. The Garden of Genesis overlaps with the Garden of Easter, the tree of life and the tree of the cross. The cherubim and the angels in white robes redeem humanity, Mary Magdalene, presenting itself again to its true guardian, risen to receive fulfilled life.
Grazie Padre Gianfranco per questo interessante parallelismo che ci aiuta a comprendere meglio la rappresentazione simbolica nel creato così come concepita da Dio.
Once again, thank you, Father Gianfranco, for this interesting parallelism that helped us better understand the symbolic representation of creation as conceived by God.
Grazie a voi, buona continuazione.
Grazie. E l'intervento appena ascoltato apre le porte per addentrarci meglio nella riflessione sul tempo del creato con Suor Sheila Kinsey, sorella francescana, co-segretaria esecutiva di GPAC e responsabile del movimento Sowing Hope for the Planet.
The reflection we just heard opens the door to get involved into the season of creation with Sister Sheila Kinsey, a Franciscan sister, GPIC co-executive secretary and coordinator of the Sowing Hope for the Planet movement. On to you, Sister Sheila.
Well, I am delighted to hear that you will be celebrating the season of creation in such a special way this year. What a wonderful opportunity for the Camillian family to listen and respond together to the cry of creation. Through your common prayer and action, you help us listen to marginalized voices. As religious, we need to be prophetic, raise our prophetic voice, to comfort the afflicted, challenge those who need to change, and promote hope for a more sustainable future. We must raise our voices together. That is why you are called to participate in the season of creation, to share how you have listened to the voice of creation and to learn possibilities from others. We are fortunate to hear your intentional efforts as a healing presence. We are grateful that you are joining our global efforts to renew and unite our bonds of peace and well-being in one spirit, in the vital call to care for our common home. We look forward to the insights you have gained from the Camillian contemplative and active healing presence to those in need of attention. We are honored to hear your voice as you have provided compassionate caring from the Camillian Disaster Center in Africa, Southeast Asia, Central and South America, really throughout the world. You have done so much to integrate your responses as you have listened to the cries of the earth and the poor. You have responded to the voices of those who have suffered the impacts of climate change. In this way, you have provided and supported refugee families with shelter, emergency food relief, and to areas affected by drought, and contributed medicinal services after the Laos Dam disaster and collapse. You were present with critical relief to persons suffering from the Nepal earthquake, and you have worked to strengthen indigenous leadership in the post-COVID time. Your relief work has supported recovery and developed resilience. You have also found ways to engage other organizations to help with relief efforts as well. You provide us with insights from the symbol for the season of creation, the burning bush that Moses saw when he was called upon to save his people. You responded to this call in so many ways. You reached out to those who were suffering and who needed your healing presence. You cared for many disasters to our earth and the people suffering from tragic situations. You have been at these sacred places where those who suffered have felt the love of Christ in your actions. During the season of creation, we are asking our religious to consider enrolling in the Laudato Si Action platform of the dicastery promoting integral human development. I understand that you have begun this process in which you are asked to reflect on your charism of your Camillian family, to develop a plan and keep evaluating the plan. Tools are available on the Laudato Si Action platform website, and there is also assistance in Sowing Hope for the Planet website, which is coordinated by our JPIC Commission, specifically for religious men and women. So thank you so much for being who you are and for sharing the quality of your presence in yet another way. Thank you.
Grazie. Alziamo quindi la nostra voce profetica per confortare gli afflitti e sfidare coloro che devono cambiare e promuovere la speranza per un futuro più sostenibile. Dobbiamo alzare la voce insieme.
Let us now raise our prophetic voice to comfort the afflicted, challenge those who need to change, and promote hope for a more sustainable future. We must raise our voices together.
Grazie Suor Sheila per queste parole di incoraggiamento. Ci auguriamo davvero che moltissimi accolgano la chiamata alla partecipazione. Il tempo è scaduto e il conto alla rovescia è iniziato ieri e questo incontro vuole proprio dare spunti e riflessioni per una partecipazione consapevole e attiva per celebrare il tempo del creato.
Once again, thank you, Sister Sheila, for your words of encouragement. We hope that many will hear the call to participate. The deadline was in fact yesterday, and it began yesterday. This webinar is intended to give insights and reflections for our conscious and active participation to celebrate the season of creation.
Grazie. Bene, ora dalla Thailandia, insieme a padre Nipot Thian Nguyen del Centro di Formazione e Ricerca per Comunità Religiose e Culturali, RTRC, ascoltiamo la voce del creato attraverso la saggezza dei popoli indigeni della Thailandia.
From Thailand, together with Father Nipot Thian Nguyen of the Religious and Cultural Communities Training Research Center, or RTRC, we will hear the voice of creation through the wisdom of Thailand's indigenous peoples.
So good evening. For us now we are 7 o'clock in the evening. So I'm really very grateful for CADIS to invite us to share our struggle with the ethnic people and with creation. Especially I will talk about rice, because rice has been exploited to be the tools of exploitation of the people when they are in the period of drought in 1976. And that all over the mountains has been using rice has been exploited as a tool for exploitation. So this is what the process of RTRC and the DISAC, Diocesan Social Action Center for Development, which we are also one part of development of Thailand and Asia, Office of Human Development of the FADC. So I would like to share our struggle with the indigenous and with the rice, how indigenous and rice really has a wisdom for liberating and giving meaning, what we call that intrinsic values in the hearts of the tribe and in the hearts of the rice itself, which is related to what the creation that God is giving his word in the seeds. No? So that is very important for us. We are discovering. So I would like to summarize what we are sharing. In order to be short, we have to I have to share. There are 3 examples that rice has been really expressed in that tradition and wisdom of the current already inculturated Catholic, inculturated in the cultures of the current. So in 1975, all over the mountains in Chiang Mai, because there are a lot of tribes in the northern kingdom of Thailand. So during that part, the Bethlehem Father has been already working with the Con Rice Bank, and so we also involved with that. But after facing with that drought, how we are going to continue that work? So we organize the leaders, and then the leaders see how are we going to struggle to overcome that exploitation and drought, and we are really lacking of rice all over the world. You see that period of time, 8 months in the year, mostly we don't have rice to eat. So that is the situation. So in this case, we are really come together and analyze how we are going to overcome that rice using by the rich or by the middleman in outside and exploited, and especially they when they borrow rice, we have to pay back for 10 sacks of rice. We have to pay back for 20 or 30 sacks of rice a year. So that is so difficult for us. So how are we going to do? How we bring our Christian development So we try to study about the gospel now of Luke. Now Jesus come in order to proclaim the good news for the poor and the exploited. But then we ask, what is the wisdom of the tribe talking about rice? That is the one. So the leaders, this one, the adult, was asking the elders to tell the story, how the story of the tribe of the Karen talking about rice. So I would like to just shorten down. So there is a story of folklore of Bu Pa Chane, rice and widow and orphan, and sacred. God is giving rice to widow and orphan, and we have to share that rice to the widow and orphan. And then we really bring that, and then it is bring into the symbol of the of the current, the plate there. So there is a symbol there, that the candle is symbol of the religious dimension, and rice is symbolic of nature, and family is there. So triangle is really the harmony between the three: God, nature, and human. So we have to share for the poor. So there is the poem said that rice is delicious rice, good human, righteous man. So that is the slogan of the current. And for this one, for do the wa, it is really that in that trait, there is a pair. The style is pair, means that when you are cooperating, it is a heaven. So you have to share and cooperate. That is for life. And then when you turn back, and that side is for the death. And the death is because of you are competing. So when you are competing, you fight and it becomes hell. So that kind of slogan of the current is spread all over the current. So the current use the grain of rice, the pin of rice, and already rice that is already cooked. So that is the one. So it is Bu Pa Chane for the widows and orphans. And now it become expressed into 500 villages. And the people are using rice and their wisdom to struggle and to build their communities and create the community of sharing. And they say that this is the way that we build the new what you call society according to our wisdom. And then for this one, for the another group is for the Thai wisdom, because rice has kwan. Kwan is essence of life. And because when we have this kind of development plan, 1965, there was a slogan said, development is money, money is happy. And the woman has been forced to work in the city, and then some forced to be prostitute. So they really exploited in that sense. But after that, 2 or 3 generations come back. The young woman and the work of the dissect, working together. And the woman has find out that in our wisdom, that is what the grain of rice, there are 9 grains of rice. And that is so important. The first grain is for yourself. The second is for family. The third one is for the native and visitor. And the fourth grain is for the poor. And the other one is building the community. The other one, the 6th, is exchange. The 7th is to train religious for the young. The 8th grain is for those who died. And the 9th grain is so important that we have to use rice to build up the new community, the messianic society. And that the women have used that 9 grain of rice to cover the money, that the money dehumanizes. So now we use rice, 9 grains of rice to cover, so that the money has to be inspired by these grains and values of rice. And then the people said rice has 4 values. The first value is values of consumption. The second one is exchange values. And the third one is spiritual cultural values, because rice has a sense of life, we call kwan, no? And the fifth one is the rice has embodied Pascan Mishra, because it died for us for 3 times and piece of life. So when we eat rice, we have to be white rice. So this is the woman, this is the things. The woman is the one who really implement the wisdom in order to cover money, economic money that exploiting human and the earth. So now this expressed in the province of Payao in Thai. And the other, to summarize, that for the Lahu, and this is another tribe. So they said that God, we call Kusha, no? Kusha is building sky, is the father. And when Kusha, no, built the earth, is the mother. When the father, sky, send the water to the mother give birth to everything, the tree, the insects, the animals, and everything is of one family. And then they say that in that family, all the universe is like the spider web, and everyone is on that spider, and God is the center. When you are doing something, it's affecting each other. And so when they are cultivating in the field, also they have to perform rituals. We call celebrare, means the huts of ritual, that they have to thank God that help them to fertility, but they have to ask pardon what they have killed, the insects, the tree, the grass, and also especially with the earthworm that died. So they have to beg pardon. That so that kind of relationship, they call themselves a covenant between God, human, and nature, that are family together. So they have to do it, and then they have to ask permission of God. That is a 3 example. And then to summarize on the trees example, there is a 3 dimensions of God in there. Now this is a symbol. So the last one is there are this kind of triangle, supreme being, human, and nature. Everything has to be related, interconnected, interrelated, into inspiring, immanent in what we call that absolute is immanent in nature and immanent in human. So we have to respect nature, that because nature is sacred, God is present. So that relationship we call the ingenious wisdom, and we call that anthropo cosmos. That is what the things that we would like. But this one is really a very detailed, but I would like to synthesize that this power that really spread the power of wisdom, it's like a Holy Spirit, and also it's like the charisma about Pascal mystery, that Christ died 3 times to give us life. And the current and the people say that we have to really inspired by this spirit wisdom of Christ, because Christ is a kind of sacrament of the cosmic Christ in the earth. And that is the current has been really see Christ in nature and have let's respect nature. Thank you. Okay, to synthesize on that. Huh?
Sì, ecco alcuni pensieri da assimilare, ruminare. I nostri fratelli e sorelle indigeni, Karen e Lau, hanno un modo di vivere strettamente intrecciato in 3 dimensioni: il rapporto con l'essere assoluto, con la natura, l'ambiente o l'universo, e con gli altri esseri umani, la famiglia, la comunità, la società. E poi la banca del riso era un rinnovamento del valore dell'aiuto reciproco e anche una soluzione al problema dello sfruttamento da parte di commercianti e intermediari esterni. E inoltre la natura è dispensatrice di vita, una vita che devono rispettare e proteggere. Sono infatti consapevoli che senza la natura gli esseri umani non possono vivere, ma al contrario la natura potrebbe esistere anche se non ci fossero gli esseri umani.
So some thoughts to ruminate and assimilate in the presentation. Our indigenous brothers and sisters of Karen and Lahu, which I was fortunate to be able to experience, to stay with them, have a way of life closely intertwined in three dimensions. Their relationship with the absolute being, with the nature, the environment or universe, and with other human beings, family, community, and society. The Rice Bank was in fact a renewal of the value of mutual aid and a solution to the problem of exploitation by traders and middlemen from outside. Nature is the giver of life, a life that they must respect and protect. They are aware that without nature, human beings cannot live. On the contrary, nature could exist even if there were no human beings.
Grazie Padre Nipot per questo
little bit.
intervento ricco di spunti.
So I add just 1 minute. They said that they have to transmit this with the young people, and they have to transmit with the children. So this is the consciousness with the old, with the elder, with the young, and with the children. So that this generation, 3 generations, have to really transmit that spiritual of rise and the secret of nature into spread into wider community. So that I would like to say that the people really aware that God is with them, and they have to explain to other generation, especially in 4th generation, especially to the children. Thank you.
Grazie per questo intervento veramente ricco di spunti di riflessione.
Thanks again, Father Nipot, for this thought-provoking reflection.
E dalla Thailandia passiamo al Kenya e ascoltiamo insieme Ashley Kitisia, attivista del movimento Laudato Si per la lotta ai combustibili, che ci aiuterà a comprendere meglio il punto di vista delle donne in Kenya rispetto alla voce del creato.
So from Thailand to Kenya, we'll listen together to Ashley Kitisia, an activist with the Laudato Si Fuel movement, who will help us understand the views of women in Kenya with respect to the voice of creation. On to you, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aris and the team. Thank you, Father Nipot and Sheila, for sharing the wonderful presentations. My name is Ashley Kitisia, and I work with Laudato Si movement. I am based in Nairobi, Kenya. I am Kenyan, and I work with fighting fossil fuels in the whole continent of Africa. So starting from Kenya all the way to South Africa and even north of Africa. Africa is a big continent, but we try our best to ensure that we hear the cry of creation, especially in regard to ensuring that there are no more toxic gases being emitted into our environment, and we try to fight as much as we can for a sustainable environment where there are zero emissions and clean air, and hopefully achieve this by the year 2050. So here, listening to the voice of creation from the women in Kenya perspective, I would like to say that Kenya has made significant progress since 2010 towards trying to really amplify the voice of women, because women previously in Africa have been left out of the conversation. They are not included in the discussions and decision making, yet they are the ones who are most impacted when it comes to issues and challenges affecting creation. So from a Kenyan law perspective, the first big change that was made was that 2/3 of any political seat and seating usually has women. So we find that at least 60% of every kind of organization should have women, because women are majority of the Kenyan population. Almost 75% of Kenya's population right now is women. Then we also have the equitable participation of women and girls. So we try as much as we can from our government to have girls in these spaces. They are empowered, they are given jobs, they are listened to. There is even many campaigns that really focus on bringing the girl child to the table and avoiding things like early marriages or female genital mutilation, which unfortunately still happens in our country. So the law really tries to protect girls and women even from the sexual offenses, and trying to really ensure that they can live in a quality environment where they can be able to achieve their goals and make a positive impact to our society. Then we also have the Bill of Rights. So our rights in Kenya, for example, are very progressive. So we have many freedoms that also guarantee women away from discrimination. So we have rights that protect the social, economic, political, spiritual freedoms that women are entitled to and should be encouraged to have. Then we also have education. A lot of schools are coming up in various localities to ensure that at least every little girl child can be able to access education and be able to fulfill a career, or about how to protect. Seeing that they are raising their voices against that could be poised from destructive projects that could affect our environment, affect our soil, you know, for example, the extraction of oil, which usually displaces people from their homes. It causes a lot of pollution, and also a lot of people don't even benefit from the extraction of these gases from their homes because they have to be shipped abroad and sold back to us at a high price. So we find that women really participate in human rights, environmental rights, and economic rights fights. And when we talk about the indigenous communities, for example, here in Kenya, we have a lot of women who are forced away from their homes. Right now, we have the Maasai communities. And this is because, hold on, Father Iris, please don't change the slides. We have a lot of women being displaced because of lack of access to information, and they could be in a position where they could have raised their voices if only we paid attention to the voices of indigenous communities. And this is something that is consistently being echoed in many conversations. And so we hope that as Kenyan women, and even during this season of creation, that we can advocate for women to be able to raise their voices, especially the women who are from indigenous communities, who maybe do not even have access to the legal information and legal presentation that they need in order to fight for their communities and the children that they have now and for generations to come. Then when we talk about human rights, we still see a lot, even though the law has guaranteed of these women, we still human rights that they advocate for it. We really raise our voices to advocate for human rights, because the cry of the poor is also part of our mandate during this season of creation, to really listen to the voice of people, the voice of the people who are voiceless, and give them an opportunity for them to share their concerns, and also support them and fight for them in order to have a quality and decent standard of living. Then when it comes to economic rights, next slide please. Women are still being given platforms where they can empower themselves and support themselves, which means that now women do not really have to depend on a man or be married at a young age in order to be able to have an economic way of life. So we really need to see more opportunities being created for these women, even to go and pursue projects and learn even outside of the Kenyan community, so that they can come back and give value to the community. We like to say that when you touch the life of a woman, you've touched the life of a community. So when we have these economic empowerment projects for these women, it is a great opportunity for us to really make an impact. So during Season of Creation, we would also want to advocate for women's economic rights and see how best we can empower them. For example, giving them maybe seed money to start projects, and really see to it that they have the capacity to be able to make a meaningful investment with their time and their talents, and be able to make some monetary gain from that. Next slide, please. And like I said, everything is interconnected. So during this season of creation, we really need to defend the rights of the environment, just for our generation and also for generations to come. then access to information still remains a barrier. We still need to find more innovative ways to be able to raise information that people need to know in order to be empowered in their societies. And that is why I really appreciate, for example, the Laudato Si animators training, where people really learn about the encyclical and what they can do in a local way, how they can advocate, how they can have more ecological conversations, and how they can connect their spirituality to actually something like caring for a common home. Then women still need to be protected, empowered, and defended, because we know that the gender laws still are not very concrete in the legal perspective. So sometimes it is still important to, while we are continuing these conversations, include the conversation of women and girls and see how best we can sustainably support them. Then God is present with all of us. When we touch the lives of one person during this season of creation, we will be able to make a strong impact. So during this season of creation, we shall be advocating and fighting against fossil fuel projects. We shall be putting the agenda of women and women in Kenya specifically in our campaigns against the extraction of harmful gases like coal, oil, and gas, and really ensure that women are thought about during this season of creation, especially in the African continent, because no one should be left voiceless. So I end my presentation there and say thank you so much for having us here, and I look forward to all the beautiful actions that you will carry out during this season of creation. God bless you.
Grazie. E sì, il potere delle donne sta prendendo il comando nella lotta contro le grandi attività distruttive, perché hanno molto da perdere. E inoltre, come ascoltato nella presentazione, quando si tocca la vita di una donna, si tocca la vita di una casa, di una comunità e di un'intera nazione.
Women power is taking the lead in Kenya, and we are so happy to hear about that. It's very encouraging, Ashley. Fighting against large destructive activities and all other forms of destruction, because the women, they have most to lose. When you touch the life of a woman, you touch the life of a home, a community, and a nation.
Grazie davvero Ashley per aver condiviso un punto di vista così specifico e prezioso.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing us such a very beautiful and valuable perspective.
E ora la voce del... Grazie, thank you. La voce del creato coinvolge tutte le persone nel mondo e ai suoi margini, e sono forse proprio quelle ai margini che hanno bisogno di particolare attenzione, con uno sguardo rivolto al futuro. Cosa sentiamo dai giovani attivisti per il clima? Ne parliamo con Cleng Gyulbe del movimento AGAM, sostenitori della scienza e della tecnologia per il popolo.
The voice of creation involves all people in the mainstream and at the margins. And it is to those at the margins that we need to give special attention, turning our gaze towards the future. What do we hear from the young climate activists? We will listen to them with Ms. Cleng Gyulbe of the Advocates of Science and Technology for the People, or AGAM movement. On to you, Cleng.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And good morning. There are also people across the globe, and we are happy that you are here. I'll just share my screen. Can you see it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. I am Cleng Gyulbe from AGHAM, Advocates of Science and Technology for the People. AGHAM is a Philippine-based organization of pro-people scientists, engineers, and advocates of science and technology that serves the poor and the marginalized. Thank you for inviting me amidst the celebration of the season of creation. We are one with the church and the people's movement in our caring for our common home, as what Pope Francis stood up for in his Laudato Si. Today, brothers and sisters, we will listen. We will listen to different voices as we discuss environmental crisis and their people's resistance to imperialist plunder of our home, the planet Earth. We listen to the whisper of the forest, the songs, of the birds and the sounds of nature. Since human civilization, humans have relied on our environment, harnessing sunlight, water, sustainably sourcing forest products, and cultivating the land. And since the emergence of hominids or early humans to the modern man, we have coexisted with other living beings. And millions of population are directly dependent on our forests, just like the Karen people, the people from the Africa and different indigenous peoples groups. And these vast forests provide services not just to them, but also to us. But current forest cover is declining, and we are on the brink of another mass extinction. In the Amazon, according to the Nature and Culture International, we have deforested 20% of the rainforest. It's actually the biggest rainforest here on Earth. And in 40 years alone, and an additional 20% is at risk of being destroyed. Agricultural expansion is the greatest threat to our ecosystem, such as industrial farming, urban expansion, mining, petroleum, dams, and other irresponsible timber production have also led to massive forest loss globally, and thousands of species are now extinct, and thousands more are critically endangered. We are facing biodiversity loss faster at an even faster rate, because these species are vanishing before we even discover new ones. And we also hear the cries of the mountains and seas. We've been taught in schools, specifically from where I came from in the Philippines, that it is illegal logging that causes massive destruction in our forest. But in the case of the Philippines, and I believe the same is true around the world, it is legal logging and large-scale mining operations that ravage our forest ecosystems. We believe that there is no such thing as responsible mining and sustainability under capitalist production, which run on greed and profit at the expense of the people, the environment, and the planet. As you can see here in the picture below, in 2015, people and wildlife communities vanished in Brazil as the Fundão iron mine tailings dam failed, pouring 50 million tons of toxic waste into Brazil's Rio Doce, which was considered as the worst environmental disaster in Brazilian history. And we also have a counterpart in the Philippines when in 2012, Felix Padcal mine caused a massive mining spill, which released 20.6 million tons of toxic tailings, rendering the Balog River biologically dead, which affected not just the people around it, but also the farmers and different communities. And our seas are also crying. Overfishing and overharvesting of large commercial fisheries put pressure on our marine life. And another trend is also harming our seas, and that is reclamation. Here in the Philippines, you can see the picture on the left. China is building structures in the Philippine territories, particularly on the West Philippine Sea, which they claim, and it damages thousands of acres of reefs. And another is the proposed 2,500 hectare aerotropolis. You can see the picture here on the right. These are the mangrove trees. A lot of mangrove trees are felled to give way for the proposed aerotropolis, and it's on top of a resource-rich fishing grounds. These development aggression projects not only endanger mangroves and marine ecosystem, but also the fishing communities who are directly dependent on it for a living. And we hear the roars of the typhoons, of wildfires and drought. We have altered the earth like never before. And I think we could all agree that Earth now is like a living hell, especially for the poor and the vulnerable. And you could see here, according to the according to the Sixth Intercontinental Panel on Climate Change report released in August 2021, climate change is already causing more frequent and more severe floods, drought, wildfires, and other extreme weather events because of the increasing greenhouse gas emissions. And the current efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees to the pre-industrial levels are lacking. Sorry, I think the video is not playing. So you could see here how the climate has changed. It shows the global mean temperature increase in 1850 until 2010, and you could see that it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. It's because the current efforts are not enough. In 20 years, according to scientists, we will exceed the 1.5 degrees Celsius unless immediate, rapid, and large-scale reductions in greenhouse gas emissions are met. And the sad thing is emissions are not evenly distributed. Wealthy countries contribute the most, while poor countries bear the brunt of climate change. And here, imperialist greed, as evidenced by increasing greenhouse gas emissions, has brought super typhoons, wildfires, drought spells, and extreme temperatures. Do we remember the massive wildfires in Australia where nearly 3 billion animals were killed or displaced? And now we are currently experiencing the heat wave across the globe, from Europe to Middle East to China, which scorches us alive. So you can see here, it's a satellite map from NASA. It was just released 2 or 3 days, 4 days ago, I think. So the world is really hot right now. Could you imagine Seville, Spain having 42.2 degrees, and in Shanghai, China, it's already 37.6 degrees. And droughts and super typhoons are getting more frequent, not just more frequent, but more violent. There's Yolanda in 2013, killing at least 10,000 lives. There's Hurricane Katrina in the US, and there are droughts taking thousands of lives, directly or indirectly, as it hit India, where nearly 60,000 farmers committed suicide due to deaths and problems occurred amidst really bad cropping cycles. So it really breaks our heart to see this kind of news headlines. And we hear the screams of environmental defenders. In my home country, Philippines, sadly, it's the second deadliest country for environmental defenders. According to the Global Witness Report for 2019, which was released in 2020, an average of more than 4 people are killed in a week defending for the environment. That's globally. And 40% of whom are indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have local and indigenous knowledge systems. So they're very rich in terms of culture. And as more IPs are killed, we are not just losing our forests. We are also losing cultural heritage. And aside from the killings, you can see here, there's criminalization of land and environmental defenders, activists, such as red tagging and terror tagging. And most of the culprits are either state forces or private armies by the corporation. So we have here photos of some of the environmental defenders. Sadly, here is Chad Book. He's a computer science graduate from the Philippines Premier University, and he holds this Stop Lumad Killing sign in his graduation rites. Right after graduation, he served the Lumad communities to be as a community-based school teacher for the indigenous people. And last year, he and 4 others were killed by Philippine state forces who tagged them as terrorist rebels. And here is Berta Caceres. He's a Honduran anti-dam environmentalist who was killed in 2016. And the list goes on. These small names here, they are our environmental heroes, and we pay tribute and respect to them. who they have offered their lives in the defense of our planet. But despite this very gloomy, what do you call that? A very gloomy scene of our planet, the people are rising. Though several were felled, the people cannot be uprooted from the struggles. We hear their chorus, the sound of the gongs, the songs of resistance, and the chants of people's struggles for a better world. From the indigenous peoples who are in the front row of defense, we hear the cheers of the Waorani people of Ecuador as they celebrate against oil exploration in their lands. We have here the Lumad people resisting mining plunder, where their ancestral lands are still intact against large mining corporations. And the Dumagat and the Ogurot people, also from the Philippines, are defending their ancestral lands against dams. They flood the streets of Manila to protest and oppose these large-scale dams, which will drown not only their communities, but also other low-lying communities in Luzon. And these environmental defenders have been in the forefront of the defense of the environment. And they continue the legacy. And not just them. We have here the chants of the youth for change. From one kid skipping school, do we remember Greta Thunberg? He skipped school, and until then, the climate movement spread like wildfire across the globe, uniting people from all ages for an immediate and concrete action to the governments to address the climate crisis. And not just the youth, we have the farmers, the workers, the scientists uniting to fight climate crisis. And we say that there is no planet B. As of now, we have not yet discovered another planet such as the Earth where we can live, but another world is possible. A world where people and the planet are the priorities over greed, where sustainability is at the core, not consumerism, not profit. And we cannot deny climate change as we are already in an emergency. And as what Greta Thunberg said, we should act like our house is burning. The system needs an overhaul. And we can do a lot to change it. No? Let's continue to work with the grassroots communities in defending our forests, our land, our seas, and take part in programs that help the most vulnerable. We recognize the efforts of nonprofit organizations, the church, and support groups in taking initiatives in serving the poor, just like what Father Nipot's group working with the Karen people, Father Alex's organization and the Amazonian people, the Laudato Si movement, the Women of Kenya, and other faith-based organizations in solidarity with various communities across the globe. We continue to lobby for our local and international lawmakers in pushing for realistic policies and actions for climate mitigation adaptation, while taking into account the most vulnerable, especially the poorest of the poor from developing countries. And in addressing the climate crisis, we believe that we should push for a common but differentiated responsibility in addressing it. The biggest polluters must pay and cut their greenhouse gas emissions. No ifs and buts. It is only then that we can achieve climate justice to the victims of climate-related disasters. And we will continue to push for a just transition from fossil fuel-based energy to green renewable energy owned and managed by the people. And with that, we say that the seas are rising, so are we. Thank you very much for listening, and let's strengthen our ties and solidarity. Maraming salamat.
Sì, ancora una volta ascoltiamo il sussurro degli alberi, dei fiumi, dei laghi, e ascoltiamo le grida delle montagne, dei mari e il ruggito dei supertifoni, degli incendi, della siccità. E allo stesso tempo ascoltiamo le urla dei difensori dell'ambiente e il coro dei popoli, perché appunto non esiste un pianeta B, ma un mondo migliore è possibile.
Once again, thank you very much, Glenn. Such a very challenging presentation. Glenn is challenging us to listen to the whisper of the trees, rivers, and lakes. Let us listen to the cries of the mountains, seas, to the roar of super typhoons and wildfires and drought. Let us listen to the screams of environmental defenders. Let us listen also to the chorus of the people, because there is no planet B, certainly, but a better world is possible.
E quindi come non essere catturati dal grido dei giovani attivisti per il clima? Grazie Clang per questo contributo speciale.
So how can we not be moved by the cry of the young climate activists? Thank you once again, Clang, for this contribution.
Grazie.
Thank you. Facciamo ora un salto immaginario per proiettarci in Perù con padre Alex Spencer Baena Rios, vice provinciale superiore, che ci renderà più vicini alla popolazione peruviana discendente Inca per riflettere sulla voce del creato attraverso un video che ha mandato per noi.
So we take an imaginary leap to join ourselves in Peru with Father Alex Spencer Baena Rios, the Vice Provincial Superior of Peru, who will bring us closer to the Peruvian people, Inca descendants, to reflect on the voice of creation.
Hola, soy Alex Spencer Baena Ríos, soy religioso y sacerdote de los Camillos en el Perú, y para mí es un gusto compartir con todos ustedes estas líneas que he escrito para esta ocasión, en donde estamos reunidos en torno al lema "Escucha la voz de la creación". Los saludo desde el Perú, un país con más de 32 millones de personas y que geográficamente hablando está dividido en 3 regiones claramente diferentes. La costa, bañada por el Océano Pacífico, la sierra, marcada por la presencia de la cordillera de los Andes, y la selva, que alberga al gran río Amazonas. Escuchar la voz de la creación es ponerse el estetoscopio y sentir los latidos disonantes de una tierra bendecida por Dios, pero donde el hombre no se ha conformado con ser el administrador, sino su destructor. Por eso, considero que si bien la pandemia del COVID-19 nos permitió hacer una tregua frente a todos nuestros problemas sociales, culturales, políticos, éticos, etc., estos, frente a la famosa reactivación económica, se han venido activando una vez más, para desgracia de aquellos que no tienen voz, o se han silenciado por miedo, complicidad o amenaza. En mi patria, el Perú, la corrupción se ha convertido en el peor enemigo para el crecimiento sostenido, sostenible e inclusivo que necesitamos y anhelamos todos. Cada vez más somos testigos de cómo las leyes se hacen con nombre propio y solo buscan beneficiar a los de siempre. ¿Acaso eso también se escucha? ¿Qué escuchamos en Perú? Quiero compartir con ustedes 5 voces de las muchas que tal vez podríamos escuchar. Voz número 1. Aguas limpias. Frente a la irresponsabilidad minera en el desecho de sus relaves, frente a la falta de modernización de las empresas petroleras y sus derrames constantes en el mar peruano, frente a la falta de agua potable, frente a la contaminación de los ríos, puquios, manantiales, lagos y lagunas. Voz número 2. Protección de las reservas naturales. Frente a la minería ilegal, frente a la deforestación, frente al peligro de extinción de varias especies de animales vegetales, frente a los intereses económicos de las transnacionales, frente al crecimiento poblacional irresponsable y destructor. Voz número 3. Dignidad de todo ser humano. frente a la trata de personas, frente a la discriminación, frente a la exclusión de los pueblos originarios, frente al no respeto de los pueblos no contactados, frente a la intolerancia, frente a los feminicidios, frente a la falta de consulta popular o consulta previa. Voz número 4. Responsabilidad. Frente a la elección de nuestras autoridades, frente al uso de los recursos naturales, minerales y animales, frente a las poblaciones vulnerables, frente al patrimonio cultural heredado de nuestros antepasados, frente al legado a las futuras generaciones, frente a una educación de calidad. Unidad. Frente a la despersonalización, frente a los grupos de poder, frente a los partidismos y grupos privilegiados, frente a las mafias, frente a los individualismos, frente a la división, frente a los extremismos, frente a la desinformación, insensibilidad y deshumanización. Papa Francisco, durante su visita en el Perú, que se realizó del 18 al 21 de enero del 2018, visitó en primer lugar Puerto Maldonado, una ciudad en la selva peruana. Dijo ese día, el 18 de enero, veo que han venido de los diferentes pueblos originarios de la Amazonía. También veo que nos acompañan pueblos procedentes del Ande, que se han venido a la selva y se han hecho amazónicos. He deseado mucho este encuentro. Quise empezar por aquí mi visita a Perú. Gracias por su presencia y por ayudarnos a ver más de cerca, en sus rostros, el reflejo de esta tierra. Un rostro plural, de una variedad infinita y de una enorme riqueza biológica, cultural, espiritual. Quienes no habitamos estas tierras, necesitamos de su sabiduría y conocimiento para poder adentrarnos, sin destruir, el tesoro que encierra esta región, y se hacen eco las palabras del Señor a Moisés. Quítate las sandalias, porque el suelo que estás pisando es una tierra santa. Permítanme, decía Papa Francisco en aquella ocasión, una vez más decir, alabado sea, Señor, por esta obra maravillosa de tus pueblos amazónicos y por toda la biodiversidad que estas tierras envuelven. Quiero concluir pidiendo a Dios por mi patria, el Perú, y por todos los pueblos del mundo, pues quizás escuchamos o compartimos las mismas voces que nos impiden estar quietos ante el caos y el ruido, que nos llaman a ordenar, administrar y legar. Nos toca pues a los ciudadanos de este siglo comprometernos con cosas prácticas para ayudar no solo a sensibilizar, sino a actuar. Pues estoy seguro que las medidas que ahora tomemos de modo personal o comunitario serán las leyes de la comunidad global del mañana, que nos permitan celebrar la vida recibida y aquella que heredemos a los demás. Escuchemos, la vida nos llama. Gracias.
Per ascoltare la voce della creazione dobbiamo indossare lo stetoscopio e sentire i battiti dissonanti di una terra benedetta da Dio, ma di cui l'uomo non si è accontentato di essere l'amministratore, bensì il distruttore. E la creazione chiede acque pulite, protezione delle riserve naturali, dignità di ogni essere umano, responsabilità e unità. Mostriamo allora la nostra gratitudine per la presenza degli amazzonici che ci aiutano a vedere più da vicino nei loro volti il riflesso di questa terra.
So to listen to the voice of creation, we need to put on a stethoscope and feel the dissonant beats of an earth blessed by God, but where man has not been content to be the administrator, but became its destroyer. Creation is crying for clean waters, protection of natural reserve, dignity of every human being, responsibility and unity. Let us show them our gratitude for the presence of the Amazonians, for helping us to see more closely in their faces the reflection of this land.
Quanti spunti di riflessione, Padre Alex, grazie, e li terremo nel nostro cuore.
So much food for thought, Father Alex. Muchas gracias. Let's keep them in our hearts.
E ora facciamo un profondo respiro per fare tesoro della poesia sul creato, scritta e recitata per noi da padre Albert Alejo, professore dell'Università Gregoriana di Roma. Mettiamoci comodi e lasciamoci ispirare.
Let us now take a deep breath for a moment to treasure the poem of creation written and will be recited for us by Father Albert Alejo, a Jesuit professor of the Gregorian University in Rome. Let us be inspired with his thoughts. On to you, Father Albert.
Oh. Woo. Okay. So, buongiorno, good afternoon, good evening. I am Albert Alejo, a Jesuit priest. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so can you see my slides?
Yes.
All right. So I hope this will not be long, but my basic thesis is that when we say, let us listen to the people, then part of it is listening to their poetry. And that is mentioned by Pope Francis himself in his encyclical Laudato Si. And so my point here is, in our struggle for environment, fighting and even sacrificing our lives, we need to adapt a different kind of language, a language that connects us with the earth, with the spirit of the earth. And that is part of the spirituality, the social spirituality being promoted by Pope Francis. And so I'm happy also that we're doing this on the feast of a lady mystic, a missionary to missionaries, an apostle to the apostles, Saint Mary Magdalene. We really need the feminine spirituality, feminine spirit in this struggle. Pope Francis says that in the complexity of the ecological crisis, we cannot rely on only one type of wisdom, type of knowledge. And this is the Italian. Now in English, he says, given the complexity of the ecological crisis, we need to realize that the solutions will not emerge out of just one way of interpreting reality. We cannot rely on just the politicians' words. We cannot rely simply on the engineers' words. We cannot just rely on the scientists' words. We cannot just rely on the activists' words. We need all kinds of words. We need all kinds of knowledges. And that includes religious, spiritual, artistic, aesthetic, and poetic words. And as a matter of fact, Cantico, the encyclical of Pope Francis, which is until now driving ripples, is taken from a poem. It's taken from a poem of Francis of Assisi. It's called Cantico delle Creature, Canticle of Creatures. We're familiar with this, and if not, check the internet. But I was so inspired that I demanded of myself that I translate it in my own language, in Tagalog. And I think this also challenges me to also consider the poetry of so many indigenous groups. Some of them I've worked with in the Philippines. And I wish I could translate some of the poetic chants of the indigenous peoples I saw together with Father Nipot in Thailand. Hello, Father. Now, Cantico delle Creature is a song of praise. A song of praise from a creature to the creator through the various creatures that the creator has made. And so, presuming that we all know what this means, I will recite this with images in my language, in my Tagalog language, Awit ng Sangnilikha. Again, this is a praise to the Lord of creation, First, to the sun, brother sun, sister moon, the water, the wind, the earth, the fire, and human beings, and even death is a brother, it's a sister. So it's beautiful spiritual, ecological spirituality. Kataas-taasan, makapangyarihan na poong kumahal, sa iyong kapurihan at kalwalatian, pagpapalat dangal. Karangalang ito ay tanging sa iyo lang, kataas-taasan, at walang sinumang marapit sumambit ng iyong pangalan. So I'm sure you don't understand the literal words, but please listen to the song, to the music. Purihin ka poong kasama ng lahat ng iyong nilalang, lalo na po sa kay Kuya Araw, Brother Sun, siya namin tanglaw. Sa kanyang kariktan, kaming nilikha mo'y naliliwanagan, nakabibighani at nagliliwayway, may dakilang kinang, at ikaw poong kataas-taasan ng nilalarawan. Purihin ka poong kina Ate Buwan. Praise to you, Sister Moon. At mga bituin in the stars, hinugi sa langit, malinaw, marikit, mahiyas na angkin. Purihin ka poon sa kay Kuya Hangin. Praise to you, Lord, for the gift for my brother Wind. Sa simoy at hihip, maunat, tahimik, anumang panahon na papalit-palit. Sa bigay mong buhay na mga anlilikhay silang tagahatid. Purihin ka poon sa kay Ate Tubig, na mapag-alalay, mapagkumbaba, napakahalaga at napakadalisay. As we listen to the music, to the poetry, which we don't literally understand, imagine there's so many tribes, so many languages, so many cries, so many poems that we don't understand. There's so many chanting that we could only listen and celebrate without understanding the literal meanings. And feel how much we are losing because we don't pay attention to the non-scientists, the non-activists, the non-theologians. Purihin ka poon sa kay Kuya Apoy. Praise to you, Lord, to Brother Fire. Sa gabi lagablab, siya ay matikas, masiglat, malakas, masidhi ang alab. Purihin ka poon sa kay Ate Lupa, Inang Diwata. Praise the Lord for the earth, the sister goddess earth. And by the way, this painting was done by a sister who has mystical images when she paints Mother Earth and struggles. Purihin ka poon sa mahal, nagpapatawad, silang nagbabata ng mga hilahil at nagpapahirap. So there is also praising for the poor, those who bear the brunt of the devastation and the destruction of the earth. Purihin ka poon sa kay Ate Panaw. Praise you, Lord, for Sister Death, because it's the source of transformation and regeneration sa lupang katawan. Everything will be dissolved. Everything will experience some kind of death, but this death will be a transformation. And so I celebrate with you. This is just one poem, but I would like to imagine and invite you to enter, get into at least one poem from the tribal groups we serve. Get one poem from the martyrs, ecological martyrs of our time. And what is needed here? There is a strong relationship between the aesthetic education and the celebration and education for beauty. If our activism is just purely on ugliness, then we might miss what we are fighting for, which is the original beauty of all creation. There is actually beauty even in the struggle, and there is so much to celebrate. Now, I would like to transform a passage by Pope Francis in Espanol originally. Los ríos no beben su propia agua, los árboles no comen sus propios frutos, el sol no brilla para sí mismo. Rivers don't drink their own water. Trees don't eat their own fruits. The sun does not shine for itself. Flowers do not spread their fragrance simply for their own satisfaction. Look, in nature, there is a law. Living for others is already natural law. Life is good and beautiful if you are happy. But Pope Francis says, it is much better when others are happy because of you. Hindi iniinom ng batis ang sarili niyang tubig. Hindi pinipitas ng puno ang bunga niyang hitik. Hindi lang para sa araw ang kanyang liwanag. Hindi para sa bulaklak. Taglay niyang halimuyak. Oo, maganda ang daigdig pag ikaw ay masaya. Ngunit higit kapag iba ay nabigyan ng ginhawa. Batas na ng kalikasan ang mabuhay para sa iba. Vivir para los otros. So, laudato si Signore. Praise to you, Lord, for all your creatures. I miss our garden in the Philippines. I'm now assigned in Rome. Praise to you, Lord. Laudato si Signore, for the fruits of the earth. Praise to you, Lord, for the struggles, for walking with us in our worship, in our struggle, in our fight for justice, especially with the indigenous groups and all those who offer their lives for this wonderful struggle. And finally, let me end this with another quote from Pope Francis. He calls us, these activists, social poets. He says, I like to call you this, social poets. Why? Because you have the ability and the courage to create hope, where there appears to be only waste and exclusion and ugliness and destruction. Poetry means creativity. And you are social poets because you create hope. With your hands, you know how to forge the dignity of each person, of each creature, of families, and of societies as a whole, with the land, shelter, work, care, and community. So thank you, Lord. I praise the Lord for this community of social poets. We create hope. Gracias. Grazie.
Grazie, sì. Quanta bellezza, a dimostrazione del fatto che un messaggio può essere veicolato in tantissime espressioni creative, come in questo caso attraverso la poesia. Quindi grazie, Padre Albert.
So much beauty, proving that the message can be conveyed in so many creative expressions, as in the case of the poetry that Father Albert has presented. Thank you very much, Father Bert.
Questo viaggio tra le riflessioni di diversi esponenti impegnati per la diffusione della voce del creato sta volgendo al termine. E se gli spunti sono tanti, come possiamo rendere effettiva la nostra azione? Cosa possiamo e dobbiamo fare? Ce lo dice Cheryl Dugan, Program Manager del movimento Laudato Si della regione Asia-Pacifico.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. And thank you, Father Aris, for this chance to be here with you all. I am Cheryl Dugan. I lead the program and campaigns for the Laudato Si movement in Asia and Oceania continents. I am from the Philippines, but I'm currently calling from Rome. I was asked to briefly share with you some concrete celebration ideas, which centers on the theme, listening to the voice of creation. Cardinal Czerny, during the Vatican Season of Creation press conference yesterday, he read the message from Pope Francis for the World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation. And if I can just quickly read it, his message says, the sweet song of creation invites us to practice an ecological spirituality attentive to God's presence in the natural world. It is a summons to base our spirituality on the loving awareness that we are not disconnected from the rest of the creatures, but joined in a splendid universal communion. And so during the season of creation, we are invited to listen to the voice of creation, both the cry and the song. And we are invited to engage in different ways. And it can be through prayer, sustainability initiatives, and advocacy. There is a celebration guide prepared that you can download in a number of languages from the Season of Creation website. So it is available in English, Arabic, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French. And I'd like to draw attention to a few suggestions from the celebration guide. So one way to celebrate the season is, a suggestion is to host an ecumenical prayer service that unites all Christians to pray for our common home. And it is best to do this, if possible, outside, so that we get to pray for and with creation. And you may also consider featuring the logo of the celebration, which is the burning bush, as a symbol of the community's intention to remove our sandals and recognize earth as a holy ground. And you may also include creation themes, for example, into prayers or Bible studies. Another suggestion is to go on a pilgrimage or creation walk to an important natural site in your country or city, such as forest, river, or a location which is affected by social inequality, where you can hear the cry of creation, and conclude this activity with reflection and prayer. The Laudato Si movement in Korea makes these pilgrimages very often, like on a weekly basis. What they do is they regularly go to coal facilities, which are, as we all know, significant emitters of greenhouse gases. And they hold prayer services in these coal facilities. And on sustainability, there are several suggestions. One approach could be to host sustainability events like beach cleanups, ecumenical tree planting, community gardens, and trash management conversations. But depending on the ecological challenges which you wish to solve in your town and cities. Or you might want to implement sustainable reforms at the institutional level, in which case the Laudato Si Action Platform will be very helpful for this effort. So a first step could be like conducting an energy audit, for example, of your buildings, which is, and in this process, you will examine important areas like heating, lighting, ventilation, and it will present several opportunities for immediate footprint reduction. The divestment of your investment from, if you have any, in fossil fuel companies was also an example cited yesterday by Cardinal Czerny. And last but not the least, of course of action would be to advocate for or to join campaigns that demand ecological restoration. Advocacy is a very new suggestion in this celebration guide. We didn't have this in the previous celebration guide. So one way, the first step that is suggested is to listen and be in dialogue with the marginalized, including indigenous peoples, which we have heard from our previous speakers. They are normally not heard in very big platforms such as the UN Climate Summit or the Biodiversity Summit, but there are so many voices being muted in this conversation, and including scientists, of course, biodiversity experts, but more so the people and community which are badly impacted by climate change. They are the ones being excluded from these very important conversations. And so we are called to listen, and whenever we can, lift up their voices in places or forums where we have influence. So the key thing really is not to speak on their behalf, but to lift up what they said, or to help their voices reach the leaders and different parts of the world. And this can be done in many ways, featuring their stories in our social media campaigns or our publications, or featuring them in our global conversations such as this. It is time that the world hears the knowledge of the indigenous communities in order to find solution to the impacts of this climate crisis or the biodiversity crisis that we are facing. And we can also do something like petitions, so global petitions, like the Healthy Planet, Healthy People petition, which asks the that local communities be heard in these global conversations. We could also lift up their voices in global meetings. One example I can give you is the UN Oceans Conference, which happened recently in Lisbon. Catholic groups from Oceania continent came together and collaborated to organize a parallel side event to share the stories of indigenous communities and faith groups about their stories of connection with ocean and their call to action to protect the ocean. And we managed to get some media coverages for this, and possibly and hopefully it helps to reach the leaders participating in these conferences. I acknowledge that in this particular meetings, there's indeed lack of space for faith and symbolic languages as they discuss the issues. So, and we have another opportunity because there is an upcoming COP27 and a biodiversity summit where they will be deciding important policies. So maybe you could find out which groups or organizations are doing something or some activities for this particular events and maybe join them. So it's really time that the world hears and we amplify what indigenous peoples, women and girls, migrants and youth are saying about their experiences with the current crisis that we are facing. At a local level, you can possibly advocate with your government or climate negotiators and by writing to them or speaking with them. And so the celebration guides also have some tips on how to do these activities. So please download them from seasonofcreation.org. And I would like to close with an invitation for us all to stand in solidarity with the rest of the Christian community by celebrating the season of creation. And just as the burning bush gives us affirmation that God is listening to our cries and the cries of the suffering, and he also promises, it is also a sign of promise that he will always be with us and that he will always be present and he will faithfully respond to the cries of creation through worship and action. And so it's an invitation for us to continue our listening and to taking action during the season of creation and beyond the season of creation. I apologize that I will not be able to join the question and answer session as I have to go back to a meeting, but I really appreciate this time with you. And thank you so much for embracing the season of creation.
Grazie Cheryl e grazie a tutti i partecipanti. Direi che ora abbiamo veramente tutti gli strumenti per poter partecipare al Tempo del Creato 2022 con consapevolezza. È proprio questo il centro della riflessione. Cosa possiamo fare? Gli spunti sono innumerevoli e la chiamata all'azione può coinvolgere davvero tutti, individui, gruppi e comunità.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, and all participants. So we now have all the instruments to be able to participate fully in the season of creation. This is precisely the focus of the reflection. What can we do? The insights are countless and the call to action can involve everyone, individuals, groups and communities.
Il sito web Season of Creation mette a disposizione idee e strumenti per poter partecipare o organizzare eventi da qualsiasi parte del mondo. Una sessione collettiva di preghiera, un evento di sensibilizzazione, un'attività all'aperto. L'unico requisito è davvero la volontà di fare.
So the Season of Creation website provides ideas and tools for you to participate or organize events from anywhere in the world. A collective prayer session, an outreach event, an outdoor activity. The only requirement is the will to do.
Anche CADIS dal 1 settembre al 4 ottobre parteciperà attivamente al Tempo del Creato. Vi invitiamo quindi a seguirci sui canali social, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn e sul sito web sempre aggiornato.
CADIS from September 1 to October 4 will also actively participate in the celebration of the season of creation. And we invite you to follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and on, of course, our website. So now, yeah, we are now about to close the session. I'm very sorry because we go beyond the time allotted. And so I guess you could not take any questions at this point in time. But the good thing is that we were able to meet one another here. So keep in touch. As I was saying, seen in the chat box, that there's an exchange of communications already. So I think this is the best way to continue this celebration.
Sì, grazie per il vostro tempo. Purtroppo siamo andati un po' avanti con il tempo, quindi saltiamo la parte delle domande, però abbiamo notato con piacere che sulla chat c'è stato uno scambio di contatti, riflessioni ed è stato bello incontrarci qui, anche se virtualmente. Ottimo. Siamo quindi giunti alla fine di questo incontro e vi ringraziamo nuovamente per essere stati con noi in questa giornata di riflessione. Grazie a tutti i partecipanti che hanno donato il loro tempo e le loro bellissime parole. Vi invitiamo a contattarci comunque per ulteriori informazioni o riflessioni, perché per noi la condivisione è importante.
So friends, we have come to the end of this meeting, and thank you again for being with us today. Thank you for all the participants who donated their time and their beautiful words, especially our speakers. We invite you to contact us for further reflection. Remember, sharing is essential.
Vi lasciamo ora con un video del movimento Laudato Si sulla voce del creato, e quindi alzate il volume e guardiamolo, ascoltiamolo insieme.
So we leave you with a video of Laudato Si movement on the voice of creation. Raise high the volume and enjoy watching, praying and listening together.
Grazie.
Okay, so grazie mille. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Grazie mille.
Thank you, fathers. Thank you.